supporting and those that we continue to work with the bill to ensure that we create something that is safe for all of our youth here in California. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay. With that, we have a motion from Senator Bryan, seconded by Senator Connolly, and the motion is to pass to appropriations. May we have a roll call on the vote, please?
Colra,
Aye.
Colra, I. Dixon, Dixon, I. Wicks,
Aye.
Wicks, I. Bryan,
Aye.
Bryan, I. Connolly, Connolly, I. Haney, Haney, I. Mainshine, Pacheco,
Aye.
Pacheco, I. Sanchez, McKinner, McKinner, I.
All right, the bill is out. Thank you so much, Dr. Weber.
Thank you.
And file item 2 is AB 1333. Is Senator Ward, please take your time and get settled in. And whenever you're ready, feel free to open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations on your first hearing as the chair of this committee.
Thank you.
Members, I want to thank our committee staff for their hard work over the last year and this fall on this bill. AB 1333 would prohibit the bulk sale of newly constructed single-family homes to institutional investors who have more than 1,000 units in their portfolio. As California continues to face a housing crisis, we are seeing the data whereby institutional investors are turning to the single-family housing market to increase profits. In 2021, it was estimated that capital investment in the single family housing market topped $45 billion in our state and was growing even more in 2022. A subset of this is a trend called build to rent communities, which is facilitated by bulk home sales, and it's a rapidly expanding trend in California and indeed in other states as well. This severely limits the ability of first time and first generation homeowners from competing for these homes, as institutional investors would leverage their ability to buy in cash at times and bypass appraisals and other typical processes in exchange for discounts on bulk purchases of single family home tracts under construction. These bulk transactions lower the overall housing stock, which increases home prices for first time home buyers, takes away home ownership opportunities and wealth generation opportunities for Californians and their families. During the Great Recession, real estate investment trusts were established and flourished through their bulk purchase of foreclosed properties. And in 2022, you all might remember, the legislature found the trend negatively impacted individual home buyers and responded by passing AB 2170, which prohibited the bulk sale of foreclosed homes. AB 1333 similarly would give back lost opportunities of home ownership to Californians at a time when the state's middle and working class residents are forced to choose between the dream of home ownership and the ability of generating wealth, or leaving our state. With me to speak in support are Jennifer Svek, the Vice President of Public Policy and Advocacy with the California Association of Realtors, and Adam Briones, the CEO of California Community Builders.
Thank you. Up to 2 minutes each, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Jennifer Speck on behalf of the California Association of Realtors. We'd like to thank the author for all of the work that he's done on this bill and to improve the opportunities for Californians to facilitate homeownership opportunities and generational wealth. AB 1333 eliminates bulk sales while preserving the opportunity for all buyers, including REITs, to purchase newly constructed single-family homes. Buyer competition generally results in higher sales prices and more profits for those that are selling the parcels. AB 1333 appears to be modeled after a similar bill that we sponsored last session. Authored by Assembly Member Grayson, AB 2170 prohibited large lenders from selling foreclosed homes in bulk, which was defined as 2 or more single-family homes, in order to allow buyers an equal opportunity for our state's working families to be able to purchase and own or occupy more affordable entry-level market-rate homes that are re-entering the market post-foreclosure. AB 1333 was significantly amended by the author and only eliminates the bulk or bundled sales of newly constructed homes to REITs that are often funded by hedge fund purchasers who currently benefit from deep discounts in home price and transactional costs for title and escrow, which is not a similarly offered discount that is given to owner occupants, first-time home buyers, or generational wealth buyers. I think it is important to highlight that the author's thoughtful efforts to resolve the supply issues for families seeking opportunities to purchase entry-level market rate home ownership opportunities under AB 1333, it's important to also note that builders can still choose who they sell to. This bill does not prohibit a builder from determining that they would like to sell continuously to REITs. All it does is say that these sales to REITs must be done in a one home per transaction basis. I should also note, realtors generally do not sell new construction as builders generally manage their own transactions, as buyers are self-managed during these situations and self-represented. However, due to high demand, limited supply, we continue to face a significant shortage of market rate entry-level homeownership opportunities for our state's working families seeking to purchase generational wealth opportunities as the state leaders look to bridge the state's continuing wealth gap. CAR is proud to support AB 1333 because it seeks to allow families an opportunity to submit offers on the smaller, more affordable homes that will help first-time homebuyers and first-generation homebuyers be able to realize their dream of California homeownership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Adam Briones, and I'm CEO of California Community Builders, a nonprofit working to close the racial wealth gap, focusing on housing and homeownership. As an organization led by and serving people of color, I'm here today in support of AB 1333. California faces a housing affordability crisis that has slammed the door shut on homeownership for millions. As we have heard all too often, California does not build enough housing, especially for sale units affordable to moderate and middle income working families. AB 1333 takes the necessary steps of prioritizing home buyers over large institutional investors by ensuring that these large corporate entities do not have an even greater advantage when it comes to buying these newly built homes. There are no silver bullets when it comes to the housing crisis, but AB 1333 will help us to support a level playing field for first-time homebuyers by ensuring that hundreds of homes can't be taken off the market in a single transaction and turned into rental properties. AB 1333 does not prohibit large investors from purchasing newly built homes. It simply removes some of the economic efficiency that drives their acquisition strategy by requiring them to buy one home at a time as a normal buyer would. In this way, AB 1333 levels the playing field with actual California taxpayers that would like to own and occupy a home. Home ownership is a broadly shared policy goal in California, and one in which our state invests millions of dollars annually in supporting through down payment assistance programs and other measures. AB 1333 is one reasonable step in protecting that shared goal, which is an unfortunately scarce resource in our state. Thank you for your consideration of this important measure, and I respectfully request your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of AB 1333? Anyone here in opposition to AB 1333? Feel free to take a seat up here.
Good morning, Chair Carl and members of the committee. Steve Cruz on behalf of the California Building Industry Association. And we are opposed to the measure. And just as a little background, and I want to go over some of our issues, but we did oppose the bill as it concluded last year. Looked at the amendments last week, had a chance to with the consultant and maintain our opposition. And what I'm going to share with you today are a number of, we believe, unintended consequences with the bill. We've got some feedback from our members, but not complete. But we also have some reservations about the underlying policy. But I want to go over some of these issues because I think they are consequential. First, in many of our projects, we frequently build affordable housing. Sometimes we partner with affordable housing providers who maintain the databases of income qualified occupants. Those providers purchase those affordable homes from us in bulk. Those affordable housing providers may meet the definition, of an institutional investor as is defined in the bill. So as written, it would not allow for bundled purchases for new homes to an affordable housing provider, such as think of Jamboree or Eden or Habitat. Second, the definition of institutional investor will be very difficult to comply with as a practical matter. For a home builder selling a new home, how will they know if an institutional investor owns how many properties? Where is it? Just in California? Is it across the country? Is it globally? So again, it would be difficult to know if they're made in the name of a subsidiary. So there's a lot of challenges in trying to comply as on the builder side of it. Third, there are also builders. There's situations in which builders could meet the definition of an institutional investor who may have more than 1,000 single family homes in California. And then this would come into play in particular if through an acquisition or a merger or bankruptcy, where another builder who could meet the definition would be defined in bulk. So let me just close by saying, for these reasons, we're opposed. I think if the committee decides to work with the author, introduce, represent the institutional investors, I think we wanted to highlight the scope of the problem and does it really exist to the degree. I think the data that they shared with the committee was, I think 1%, and this is institutional investors with 500 more units. They represent 1% of new homes. We're not talking about existing, we're talking about new homes. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time with the author on, where does the problem truly exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in opposition to AB 1333?
Natalie Boust on behalf of the California Business Roundtable in respectful opposition.
Thank you. All right, we'll bring it back to the dais. Assemblymember Haney.
Well, first of all, thank you, Assemblymember Ward, for your leadership, and definitely appreciate, as I told you, the goal of bringing more opportunities for home ownership, individual home ownership, and the way that this would do this. Just two things I wanted to ask about or raise. The point about the affordable home ownership opportunities. Is there something that could be done to make sure that those folks wouldn't be captured, or is the intention to capture them? Sort of how you're looking at the first example that was given, and then the second thing is, I know we all are working hard to get more housing built and to do whatever we can to address, I think, the lack of homes that are being built across the state. To the extent that this is a way that they fund the home building itself by working with these institutional investors. Is there any concern that you have that this would sort of affect home building because of the lack of being able to put together these kind of investment opportunities that may include these kind of deals on the front end? That would be a concern. And obviously we want more individual home ownership opportunities. That takes more homes being built in general. So just what kind of sort of analysis on that second point did you do around making sure that we're not going to slow the home building generally?
100%. Thank you for the questions. Really important to really vet through, and we have thought through some of these. So a couple of things. One, I'll work backwards. Look sort of from a common sense lens through this, that if you are developing a new tract of homes, that you would need to rely on a bulk sale transaction which operates at a discount. In one transaction, it's discounted off your books, as opposed to selling things over on a cumulative nature at the original market value. So think about that again. We are not able to construct these 100 homes if they were at regular market value, but we can construct them and we can give them away in one bulk sale at a discount. So it doesn't add up for me that this is going to somehow affect the price or the cost of development. In fact, if anything, there seems to be some some cost savings to be able to get things off of their books on the back end. And this isn't something that I think is necessarily thought of. As you know well, we have a lot to do on entitlement process and how long it takes to actually get new homes constructed. These are transactions that usually come towards the end of that timeline. On affordable housing, I've not heard from any affordable housing developers of any concerns on this. And I think that some of the examples that were raised, for example, Habitat for Humanity is not going out there and buying in one single transaction bulk purchases of thousands of homes. That's not who's doing this. And so we are, through the committee's guidance, really trying to tailor this to what we are seeing the evidence support, that we have a growing investment of real estate investment trusts or whatever iteration they may morph into, that are coming into this single family home market. And so we believe this singularly responds to that. I'd like Ms. Beck to add anything maybe that I had missed to your two questions, but I appreciate the questions.
I think there's a couple things to point out. CAR sponsored a bill, AB 323, last year by Assemblymember Holden. That particular bill is actually addressing what my colleague from the builders is talking about, which is the wholesale purchase of subsidized affordable housing or housing constructed due to a density bonus, and it's part of your set aside, or housing that's part of an inclusionary zoning piece. One of the things that we sought to resolve with Assemblymember Holden last year was builders choosing, instead of selling a unit that was income restricted based on ownership, they would shift the affordability even when they had applications for homeowners. In one instance, there was 80 applications of families, and the parcel was shifted to become, down in San Diego, a rental unit that was owned by a large scale REIT. And in those instances, we fixed the law specifically for that piece last year. With respect to this bill, it specifically focuses on home ownership for market rate entry level housing. It does not include anything related to the distribution, the sale of the deed restricted affordable homes, whether they're rental or owner occupied. We can make probably, I would assume that the author might consider amendments that would um, explicitly note that in the instances where those subsidized units or the below market rate units that are included within the development would be excluded from the prohibition. I think that's probably an easier amendment for the SMA member to handle. With respect to a builder that goes defunct during the middle of construction and they haven't obtained occupancy permits for those particular units, this bill wouldn't apply. The bill only applies once those units have been certified for occupancy pursuant to the statute.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Senator Connolly?
Thank you, Chair, and also my thanks to the author for bringing this forward. We're all hearing about this issue in our communities, and frankly, with rising levels of concern about it, I've got a few questions and then maybe some comments as well. So it was commented that this is a rapidly expanding practice in the market. Wondering if you can provide a little more context. For example, how much has the practice of bulk purchasing increased in the last decade?
Do you have more?
Bulk sales didn't really exist in this particular space until the Great Recession.
Yeah.
By way of history, many of us experienced, or our families experienced, someone that lost a home during the foreclosure crisis. A lot of the parcels that we lost into this type of ownership model, it wasn't done thinking that we would create large-scale REITs to reduce the amount of deficient foreclosed properties on the books of our secondary mortgage market or the federal lending institutions at the time. But foreclosures often happened to our entry level, first generation, first time homeowners that were entering the housing space back in 06, 07, 08. And that's when we saw, obviously, a lot of things that led to those homes then being returned back to the banks for one reason or another. In response, because there was so many foreclosures coming in, they had to figure out some kind of way to create space in the secondary mortgage market to continue to offer loans to new homeowners and to start to replenish and recover in the housing market. REITs were established then as a response to a market problem that we had. In response to that, after a few years of seeing the secondary mortgage market package and bulk sale properties that realtors and their clients wanted to access and potentially purchase for owner occupancy, because back in 09, we had the most affordable, or no, 2012 was the most affordable housing market that we have had in decades. 56% of all families in California could afford a medium price house then, compared to 2007 and today, when we have the most constricted affordability at 15% of families in the state being able to afford entry-level market rate housing. So the REITs didn't exist before the foreclosure crisis, and they've continued to find different models to operate in. We don't have a problem with sellers having a choice of who to sell to. The problem that we had during the foreclosure crisis was the same, and the federal government decided to pass or enact some regulations that stopped the bulk buying in its entirety, and then California codified that practice 2 years ago in the same measure that I had mentioned that Assembly Member Grayson carried. And so that's how the federal government dealt with it in the foreclosure space. So if you can't buy properties in the foreclosure space in bulk, where do you go? Well, the next place that you go to, I think, is to new home buyers. I don't think anybody envisioned that that would be the next location. But again, the problem for my members is specifically that we have a supply crisis, period. We're looking in some areas. I know that I just recently heard in Orange County, they have 4 listings, 4 homes available for sale. How are we supposed to find housing for people? We have far more demand than we do available. The largest time that we were able to produce housing was 04 and 05, where the builders were able to produce 200,000 units annually. Since then, it's anywhere between 80 and 120,000 units. I don't know what the difference is in the market that the builders were able to generate so many homes during that period. And since then, we've been stagnant, as Assembly Member Wicks and so many others have sought to streamline and create these additional opportunities, but we've been kind of stagnant at what the number is. We don't know how to get there. And with the high interest rates and the lack of supply, this is just sort of one of those tightening opportunities that's out there. And we appreciate the opportunity to participate in the conversation and try to find ways to create ownership in a very constricted space. It's very expensive. The builders are under a lot of pressure to build and sell these homes, and we understand that. But we also understand that it's tough if you don't actually have competition out there, because we also see an opportunity that builders can make more money potentially from the individual sales. But that's not our say, right? We're not deciding who sells what. We're just saying that it we agree with the Assembly members' goal of allowing more competition and the opportunity to purchase. We're not saying that they have to sell it. All this bill is saying at this point, which is why we support it, is builders have an opportunity to choose. It just has to be in a singular transaction so that a family can bid at the same time that a REIT does.
Yeah, and that pretty much answers my second question, but worth putting a finer point on. You are not, this legislation is not prohibiting purchases by these corporate investors. It's narrowly tailored toward these bulk purchases. Is that accurate?
Same is true in the foreclosure space. Nobody prohibits the REITs from buying properties. They're just taking away the discount essentially by doing it in a singular transaction. Homeowners pay a variety of inspection fees, whether it's new construction or existing construction, as they look to do their due diligence in buying a home. They also are required to pay title and escrow fees. Makes sense that a REIT would pay the same amount of title and escrow fees that a homeowner might pay.
Yeah, I think Mr. Briones had articulated it succinctly that this bill is about leveling the playing field to make sure that the procedures are the same, whether you're a traditional homeowner or corporation, whatever scale size that corporation might be. It's just trying to make sure that there is not an advantage on a entity that probably already has some natural advantages at play, that we are making sure that we're defending the opportunity for Californians to have that runway to be able to compete.
Question to the opposition, if I might. You say in your letter that this practice is helpful to single mothers and professional women who don't want to deal with the hassle of home ownership. Yet the analysis prepared by the committee, well written, I might add, outlines several instances of high eviction rates, excessive rents, and subpar living conditions from corporate landlords. How is it helpful for these families to have a landlord that is usually detached from the community in which they're purchasing and could be likelier to evict folks out of their housing? How's that a benefit?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Assembly Member. So first, I represent CBIA, and I represent the institutional investors. Of course, there's a lobbyist for them. But from the builder side, I think that was, we did include that information in our letter because we did hear from our members and have done the work in terms of the price of a home is so high that the mortgage payment is not affordable for a lot of folks. If there is someone that buys it and could set the rent at a lower rate because they have the equity in it, then they have availed those opportunities. And what they pointed to us was a lot of single mothers and business women, and someone that may not be quite at the point of their career to afford the mortgage but could afford the rent. So I think that was in the letter. And if I could just respond to one thing, I think we obviously want to work with the chair of the housing committee. We've worked with Senator Ward very closely over the years. And so I think the things like the affordable housing issue, it doesn't cover it today. As the bill is written today, it doesn't cover that instance. And so I wanted to bring that to the author's attention and the sponsors. In fact, it actually could conflict with the other bill that was referenced. I think the other thing that we want to make sure to put on the record is there are a lot of home builders and there are open houses all over California. We have homes available. And so the issue of the competition, there are homes available for people who want to buy them and can buy them. And so that's selling them at a discount is not something that they want to do. It's not part of their business model. There is at times some flexibility needed, as I mentioned in our letter, but otherwise I think we want to work with the author if there's a way to fix these things. I think the underlying policy we're not crazy about, right? I mean, sort of how when we need that needed flexibility, but that's where we're at today. So
Thank you. Senator Ward.
Let me add on to, I just wanted to state, because my ears are burning, that we shouldn't necessarily presume or accept on its face that a single mom raising kids is going to prefer a rental as opposed to home ownership. And in fact, for me, it's about very much worse for somebody with some challenging life circumstances, that they would not have an opportunity for home ownership because these activities going on around us are allowed to occur without counterbalance, is our duty to be able to step up. Not far from us, many of us go to the airport to be able to go home to our districts, is a community called Tanzanite, and it's just developed. You saw it under construction last year. It's open for residents this year, and it was completed through a transaction of this nature. 211 homes. And when you run the numbers, they average 1 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms between $2,400 and $3,500 in rent. But when you run also the pricing that would have otherwise been obtained through probably comparable sales of those types of units at today's, even at today's interest rates, they would come up to $3,500 a month for a mortgage. So this is a shift. It's not about that they can't afford one over the other, still having to pay that rent. They're still having to pay it out of their paycheck. They're denied the opportunity for home ownership.
Senator Pacheco?
Thank you. And thank you to the author. Thank you for making that comment as well, because I agree with you. A single mom with children would want to own a home instead of rent. And I think home ownership is very important. I think it's something that we should all strive to. And I know there may be some unintended consequences. And I know Jennifer had brought up a potential amendment. So maybe just working through that amendment and working through some other issues may be helpful. But I'm pleased to see that there is potential room, to take care of those unintended consequences. But I agree, we need more home ownership, more opportunities for people to own their homes. So thank you to the author. I will be supporting this bill today.
Thank you. And the motion and a second. Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. Um, it's an interesting dynamic here. I think we all believe we need more homes and more homes for rent, perhaps, but more homes for sale. This has been an issue that I've been concerned about for a number of years. As I've actually tracked this, unknowing about this legislation, because Wall Street Journal has been writing about this for years. And I'm concerned about the distortions in the marketplace for home ownership, that we all know young people who are saving to save up that first down payment, and then to be presenting an offer for that purchase of that single family residence to be outbid by some larger entity, even private equity, whatever, hedge fund, whatever, out of New York. As coming from local government, putting that hat on, many of us have served in local government. I mean, it's the home ownership and families in our neighborhoods that create communities, and that's a concern of mine. And if young or old or whatever age families are priced out of the home buying marketplace because of this external global kind of purchasing opportunity or business model, that's concerning to me. I mean, we all know we have a housing crisis. I've been saying this in the context of housing units as we were dealing with RENA at the local level. We're really not talking about housing single family homes, because those are really kind of being zoned out. We're really talking about rental units. So I'm very concerned that this state, under RENA governor's goals of 3.3 million housing units, are really going to be largely rental units. And now we're compounding this or these financial mechanics that are creating more housing units. We all want, I'm a total proponent and advocate for the housing industry, for the building industry. I'm just trying to understand where the housing killer bill that you described this as a housing. Why is this a housing killer? We all want people to live in homes that they own primarily, because that's for stable neighborhoods, stable communities, stable financial situations. To get in the way of encouraging home ownership or making it better and creating this competitive disadvantage is a concern to me. But explain to me, why is this bill a housing killer?
Well, I mean, we don't want to dilute the title for the reserved for like some of the worst bills and worst, forgive me, but for that term. But I believe it was constricting capital. I think that was one of the sort of metrics. Does this bill do that? I also think, and this may be it was on the original version of the bill. I think it may still be in the letter, but the original version of the bill actually as written, would have limited the way it could have been. Every home builder could only sell one home. It was just poorly drafted. And I think that's why it got that designation. It probably should not carry over to where
So
we are
that's not
currently.
relevant now.
But it's not as relevant now.
Okay. All right. And then also in your letter, as long as we're addressing that, you make a distinction between a developer and a home builder. So what was that point? I mean, I know the difference, but why don't you just explain that?
Yeah, I think it was I tried to cite it in the example about that they could serve in multiple hats. Some of our builders are developers, some are just home builders, but in the practice of acquiring lots, they could be both, and they could be included in the definition of an institutional investor, and it may inadvertently capture them when that's not the intent of the bill.
Okay. So let me ask the author, Mr. Ward. Um, so there was a mention, maybe mentioned in your letter that duplexes or triplexes would be covered by this. We're really talking about homes single family homes. Is that still in the bill?
Right, under our code, single family homes are by definition 1 to 4 units.
All right. So the bundling definition, so if it's a duplex, that would be automatically covered?
If they were part of a bulk
1,000
transaction.
Oh, how big is that bulk transaction? 1,000 homes? Or what is the bulk transaction?
Sale of 2 or more parcels.
Okay, that's a concern. So
Parcels.
parcels.
Right.
So a company that is prohibited, 1,000, if they own 1,000 units or more, that's prohibited. But for 1 or 2 bundled units, that would be prohibited as well.
If it was,
May I jump in?
if the recipient, of course, was designated institutional investor as defined.
Okay, so there is this large investor and the small investor.
Yes.
Well, so we're talking about real estate transactions now. That's the reason I kind of want to jump in because it gets really kind of complicated. So, and here we go with ADUs. I would like to thank our leaders that have created opportunities for us to facilitate the development of accessory dwelling units in the state of California. So we no longer really have anymore a single family standard where there is a one single family standalone unit. As we build new construction, as we change our existing housing stock, I can tell you I live in a new development and I have ADUs that are developed at the same time in the same manner that they're building the initial single family detached home, that they are building 1 to 2, depending on whether or not they're detached or attached. Sometimes they do both at the same time at the same manner with the new construction, where you end up with 3 units per lot, but it's still a single family home because the way that the lending industry works as we do our transactions or facilitate transactions, single family is defined as single family 1 to 4, where you can get an owner occupied loan, which means that you buy all 3 of those units together, or 2 if it's a duplex, or if it's say a single family home with an ADU. You buy those in one transaction and you can either rent out the other one, or you do it in a combined purchase with you and your mother, or you and your daughter, or you and your son, to be able to have your own independent living. And so you can do that as an owner occupied loan, which gets you the lower interest rate, which means that you're not buying as an investor, which usually gets you kicked to a higher interest rate. And you're still a conforming loan with the way the federal lending standards work. So when we talk about 1 to 4 from the real estate transaction space, that really is somebody that can owner occupy as opposed to an investor. What I think you're trying to get to is condos. And condos may have 15 or 20 units that are attached together, but they're still sold in single family units, as in individual units where you buy the inside of the walls.
The bottom line is are those units that you're describing, could be the ADU complex, or are they prohibited under this bill?
They're prohibited, so they would be included in the bill so that
They would be prohibited for what?
if it's a REIT that has 1,000 or more parcels and they're
Including-
publicly traded company, the REIT would not be able to bulk purchase 500 homes that have maybe ADUs, maybe not
What
ADUs
about
or
the individual
duplexes.
mother and the son?
They can buy it.
Pardon me?
Yes, they can buy it.
They're not
No.
excluded. Oh, all right.
No,
they're not
it applies to the REITs. This doesn't apply to
So it's the
homeowners.
type of business that is
Correct.
acquiring the property.
Correct.
Correct. It's about the type of business. Homeowners can buy a single family 1 to 4 under this.
Type of
an important
business and the
distinction.
nature of the
Yeah.
transaction.
Okay. And so who goes around validating who's a REIT and who's a personal home buyer?
That's what the definition in the bill is supposed to do.
Okay.
And title and escrow is responsible for validating transactions.
Okay, thank you very
Well,
much.
sorry about that.
Okay, no, thank you for clarifying.
No, thanks for the clarifications. Any other comments? Well, I want to thank the author for putting this forward and for the work. I know a lot of work's been done by our committee staff and the author and his staff in recent weeks leading up to this hearing. And I know that it's challenging when you come in the second year bill and amendments come in, you're still kind of trying to figure out how to negotiate that. We saw that with the prior bill we just heard. There's still plenty of time for those continued conversations, which is a good thing. But I do think that this bill is important, especially when you're thinking about kind of these build to rent models where there's bulk sales and then you're literally taking single family homes that could be for sale off the market altogether. And I've seen this happen in my jurisdiction where there was a tower and they was going to be all for sale. They basically sold all bulk, the whole building. It just not went all to lease. And cities, our state, but also cities and jurisdictions plan out how many homes are being built for sale. And when those kinds of last second transactions occur, where they bulk sale, it really throws those numbers into a really challenging position. And I know that there's thoughts that this practice may not be so widespread, which is a good thing. However, we do see it expanding in other states, kind of like a canary in a coal mine that we're going to anticipate that it'll eventually come here even with more vigor. And so it's always good to get ahead of these kinds of acts as well. So Senator Ward, would you like to close?
Thank you. In the interest of Ms. Wicks and all your time, I will just briefly say, one, I think you all know I'm going to work sincerely on any opposition efforts, especially where it comes down to a definition or things that we need tightening up so that there's no unintended consequences. Two, we have a housing affordability crisis and it's largely driven by supply. And that is not lost on me as the chair of our housing committee. And we are going to continue to work on those solutions. But while we are in a constrained market that's not operating well, that we want to make sure that through this committee's lens, we are looking at the nature of transactions and making sure that when there's a David and Goliath situation, that we are being fair for all parties. And that's what this bill does. And so with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. And I do want to thank Senator Wicks and McKinnon for stepping in today. If we could take a roll call on the vote, please.
The vote, motion is due pass. Colra.
Aye.
Colra, aye. Dixon. Wicks. Aye. Wicks, aye. Bryan.
Aye.
Bryan, aye. Connolly. Connolly, aye. Haney. Haney, aye. Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Pacheco.
Aye.
Pacheco, aye. Sanchez. McKinnon. McKinnon, aye.
All right, that bill is out. And yeah. And so the only other item we have, AB 82, if somebody from Mainshine would like to add on to that.
On AB 82, Mainshine, aye.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We're adjourned.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but freed people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay?
Come on.
You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations.
I had no idea that church I was running by every day was something my grandfather established.
This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million. And then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harm, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Overnight, it's like, oh, it's no longer the quarters, now it's Lincoln Heights. Oh, so now we get to use Abraham Lincoln for our name. And you think about all the other people that they could have used, but they picked Lincoln. And I think that's sort of a stereotypical of what they do.
There wasn't any black restaurants. As far as black business and weed, it wasn't none.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Why has it been easier for other groups than us?
Because of anti-black hatred.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR room, don't tune in.